Hey everybody, real quick before I get started, I want to tell you guys about something new that I'm trying out. I started a new Discord server. It's called One Mic. There is a link to the Discord in the episode description, and there will continue to be a link in the episode description for all subsequent videos. The reason I want to do this is because I wanted to give us all a space to collectively talk about all of the shows that I'm covering, so we don't have to talk across each other in the comments, or maybe miss some comments or miss some replies. I think it's a good place for us fans who are fans of the shows that I cover, fans of this channel, whatever that may be, for us all to get together and just kind of like talk about the show. So what I did was I created the server and then I created channels within it for each show that I'm covering at that time. Right now it's set up to cover the, I think, 4 or so shows that I'm covering right now, and then I've added channels for shows I'm going to be covering in the month of December that I know for sure. And then as I'm covering shows will cycle in and out. So like once I'm done covering a show, a channel will be deleted, and then once I start covering a show, a new channel will be added. So check out that Discord. I look forward to talking to you guys, and now let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of the new Disney Plus original series Willow, starring Warwick Davis, returning to the role as the title character Willow. Before I get started, I want to talk briefly about the showrunner, some of the actors involved, and then I'm going to talk about these first 2 episodes in a non-spoilery way so you can know if it's something you might be interested in, and then I'll wrap up with a few thoughts. So, real quick, starting off, Jonathan Kasdan is the showrunner of this show. I don't really know his name from too many other things, so I looked him up on IMDb. This is seemingly his first time as a showrunner, but he wrote all 8 episodes. He also wrote the Han Solo movie, which I think, was that like 2019, 2018, something like that. There was one other thing he wrote that I can't remember why I didn't put it in my notes, but it was something that I'm familiar with or have seen that either I didn't think was that good or I didn't think was worthy of inclusion in this miniature list of the things that he's done. But man, talk about pressure having to do something like this, something that has an established property and a fan base as your first time as a showrunner. So Warwick Davis returns to the role as Willow. His real life daughter, Annabelle Davis, plays an older version of his daughter Mims, and I just want to say up front, both of these characters are incredibly fucking likable. Willow continuing to be likable, and Mims, and this version of Mims played by Annabelle Davis, is also incredibly likable. Joanna Whalley returns as Queen Sorsha. And then there's like a cast of kids, most of which I don't know, most of these kids. And I'm using the term kids because they play kids on the show, but they very well might be like 20, 21 years old. I don't know, but they play kids on the show, so I'm calling them kids. Most of them are actors I'm unfamiliar with, but Tony Revolori plays Prince Graydon, and you would know him. He played Flash Thompson in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. And then Erin Kellyman plays Jade Claymore. She was in The Green Knight, which I feel like not too many people saw. And then she played a major role. I think she was like she was one of the major, I wouldn't call her a villain, but kind of like a villain anti-hero in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think her name was like Carrie or something like that. But she was like a kind of like an activist, more so than a villain. So talking about the show, I first want to mention the movie. I was a big fan of the movie. It came out when I was pretty young, 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere in that range. I think it was like 1988. So if it was 1988, I was 6. I don't remember the movie virtually at all. But I know I watched it a lot, like back then. I just don't remember it because it's been so long because I haven't watched it since back then. So I'm kind of coming in with a clean slate here. The only thing is like Warwick Davis, it took well into adulthood before I would see him and go, Warwick Davis, instead of going, Willow. So it was enough. It had a big enough impact on me that I remembered the character for decades after, but I don't remember anything else about the movie, really. So I'm really kind of coming into the show with a completely blank slate. And the show picks up well after the events of the original movie, but it also incorporates these flashbacks to kind of like fill in the time in between the end of the movie and the start of the series. They also fill in that space with a whole lot of exposition, but we'll get to that a little bit later. The plot, in short, it's pretty simple. An important kid, and when I say an important kid, I'm being so vague because one, I don't know. Well, the kid's name was Eric, Eric, but it was spelled like Airk. But I don't know, when I call him an important kid because I don't know why he was kidnapped, but that's because that hasn't been revealed in the story yet. So I don't know why he was kidnapped, but he was kidnapped from the courtyard in this palace and castle, whatever it is. And Queen Sorcia decides to form like a Lord of the Rings type ragtag group of people to go find this kid. And it's, pretty simple and straightforward, right? But the more fantasy movies, films, properties, whatever you watch, the more similarities you'll see in the plots and how these shows and these films are structured. Like these first 2 episodes, they're weird, man. And like weird, not necessarily in a bad way, but it's just kind of all over the place regarding like tone and I think intended audience. Because, at times it feels like it wants to be this sweeping fantasy epic full of like adventure, excitement, ceaseless peril, and it's just like it feels very much like they're going for a Lord of the Rings type vibe. Then at other times it feels like Gossip Girl. like when I say Gossip Girl, I mean like this kind of like quick-witted banter kind of deal, and it feels like the show is trying to kind of like appeal to multiple audiences, which isn't a bad thing in a general sense. It just feels very out of place at times within this show. People my age who saw the original movie as kids, we're in our 40s now, and the more grown-up aspects of the show, callbacks to the movies, adult themes, I wouldn't call it necessarily violence, but it can be a little bit dark at times. That stuff's gonna appeal to someone like me. But of course, you don't want to limit yourself to that very small demographic of the handful of people who are like 40 to 50 who really liked that movie as a kid. You don't want to limit yourself like that. You want to pull in a new audience. This is Disney Plus. You want to get as many eyeballs as you can. You want to get as many subscribers as you can. So you don't want to limit yourself to just that group of people. You want to appeal to everyone. But it's like, because of that, they incorporate this humor and this style of humor that feels way too like modern day and poorly placed, and it kind of just takes me out of the episode like a lot. It's like they'll incorporate the humor at like really strange times too. So like coupling with the fact that it feels a little bit too modern day. Like, when you're watching a fantasy thing, most of the time they got like UK accents. You feel like you're like in like medieval times. And I'm not saying that they all have to be like that, but you don't want to feel like I don't want to feel like I'm watching like some real life shit, right? So I want to feel like I'm watching fantasy. And when you have characters making like jokes that feel like jokes that will be made today in 2022 in America, it kind of feels like, all right, this is taking me out of it just a little bit. Like, for an example, like there's a moment where a character dies after being impaled by an arrow that was shot by someone called a bone reaver. And you're like, holy shit. And then they're riding away on horses cracking jokes. I'm like, there is a man back there with an arrow through his body. What the fuck's so funny right now? Like the death part is played very like, oh shit. And then they start cracking jokes while they're riding away and people are shooting arrows at them. And I'm like, wait, this feels like a totally different tone of show than the one where in the scene where the Eric is actually kidnapped, which is a great scene. The best scene out of the whole first 2 episodes is this scene where Eric gets kidnapped. And if you showed someone that scene and then showed them the scene where they're riding away on the horses cracking jokes after the person got killed by the arrow, you would think it was 2 entirely different shows. And that's what's kind of throwing me off right now with this show. The first episode and these first two episodes are also very different from one another. Like, not just like, kind of like changing the tone within an episode. Like, one scene is kind of like dark and heavy and the next one's kind of light. Or it might be one scene where a portion of it is dark, portion of it is light. In addition to that, the 2 episodes themselves are very different. Like the first episode, I bullshit you not. The first episode spent the first 20 minutes acclimating us with the relationships that these two kids are in. Respective, like they're a brother and a sister pair. The relationship that the brother is in and the relationship that the sister is in. They spend like the first 20 minutes on that shit. I bullshit you not. And I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about romantic relationships, especially in the first 20 minutes of this show. Who does, really? I mean, like, we're not here for that. This isn't a romantic comedy. But then the show gets really entertaining after that, culminating in the scene in the courtyard where Eric's kidnapped. And like that was a really cool scene that gave me very big, like kind of like Lord of the Rings vibe when Lord of the Rings got dark. And you know, after that episode 1, if you exclude that first 20 minutes of relationship building, I was pretty invested in the story. You know, I'm like, all right, let's go scoop up Willow. Let's get our little team of people together and let's go find Eric. I'm in. Then they spend all of episode 2 talking. Like they don't go anywhere. And I'm just kind of like, why don't we hit the road and start showing instead of talking? Like Willow's trying to coach one of these characters into learning magic and learning about herself. And I'm just like, bro, like we just used a flashback to explain something. You could show me these things without spending an entire, I think it was like a 48-minute episode that just felt like 48 minutes of just exposition. And it wasn't, but like that's what it felt like. And that felt in very stark contrast to the first episode, which, again, after that 20 minutes of relationship building, got pretty entertaining. Let's see. So another plot in these first 2 episodes about the whereabouts of Madmartigan, who was played by Val Kilmer in the original 1988 film, and the whereabouts of Elora Danan, who was kind of the central figure of the first movie, and also was important enough in the first movie to have a character named after her on Reservation Dogs, which comes on FX right now. One of the best shows of the year in my top 5, spoiler alert. I don't know what's going to happen with the Madmartigan subplot, simply because I'm not expecting to see Val Kilmer in this, but the Elora Danan reveal happens pretty early, and I just really wish they had made the character a little less annoying, but like I said earlier about the fairly formulaic nature of fantasy, I already know where this is going. Like, she's gonna start off kind of annoying, kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Oh, I'm special? Oh, well, okay, well, I don't really get it. I feel like a regular person. Look how I fuck all these things up. And then by the time we get to the end of the 8th episode, they're gonna be like fucking Superman and like, probably like she's probably gonna have like mad armor on. She's probably gonna be great with a sword. She's probably gonna have a sword in one hand and a wand in the other. And she's gonna be like a fucking like, I don't know, fucking king wizard. I don't know what the fuck you would call that. But like, I know how this is gonna go, so I'm letting it slide for the time being. But also fairly surprising, due to the 35 years or so in between the movie and the TV show, Willow has kind of like a Luke Skywalker kind of arc with him. Like if you think about like the movie, kind of young, you know, a little idealistic, like, oh, I'm gonna be somebody great one day. And then now, 35 years later, give or take, I don't know, I haven't done the math. 35 years later, so now he's like the old, grizzled kind of like, I know everything there is to know about magic, you should listen to me. It's not Luke Skywalker kind of like that grumpy kind of old man thing that he was doing in the sequel trilogy. It's none of that. Warwick Davis still plays the character just incredibly likable. But he is still very much that old, grizzled veteran kind of. And I'm watching this, I'm just like, there's a scene where it's not a flashback, it's like a flash forward. You know how, again, something else very, very often used in fantasy is like the flash forward, like I've seen this terrible thing happen, now I have to try to avoid it. This show's doing that too. It's pulling out all the tropes. And it's a flash forward, and he has like a big, kind of like a big gray beard. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, he even looks like Luke right now. Yeah, interesting turn of events there. I wasn't expecting to be thinking about Star Wars while I was watching this. But all that to say, I'm probably not going to cover the show like week to week, covering every episode, but I'll probably continue watching, if only to see if it gets more interesting in the second half of the season, to be more like the second half of episode 1 and less like the entirety of episode 2. But I'll probably keep watching it. I'm not going to cover it, not because I think it's bad or anything like that. I enjoyed the 2 episodes that I watched, even though, like I said, episode 2 felt like all exposition. I'm still going to keep watching, at least for now. And but it's just that it just doesn't lend itself to the kind of the kind of work that I do here. Same reason I didn't cover Wednesday. It's just not really it'd be a waste of my time, essentially, because like I put way more into these videos than some of these shows require. So that's all. But a couple of quick thoughts before I wrap up. This episode 1 had probably the wildest fucking cut I've ever seen in a show, to the point where I rewound it multiple times. So I'm like, there's no way what just happened. Like, there's no way. I rewound it, same thing. It's a really bad edit. And it was so bad, I'm kind of like, how did this get to my screen? I should have never seen this. This is a terrible cut. And yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I hope that's not a sign of things to come, but yeah, it was a bad cut, man. I wish I could explain it to you guys. I don't want to spoil the show, but it happens in episode 1. So just I don't even want to say keep your eye. I feel like if you watch episode 1, it's kind of hard to miss it. But on the plus side, the visuals are great. The monsters that show up, mainly in that courtyard scene that I mentioned in episode 1, look great. Again, referencing Lord of the Rings here, they look great like the orcs looked on Rings of Power. The locations look great, great landscape shots. I'm like, what am I watching? Succession, Yellowstone? But great shots of like landscapes, things like that. Looks like they put their money into this. Each episode is literally book-ended because they open with like a book on a chapter 2 for episode 2. And you can, for chapter 1 you could, for chapter 2 you couldn't. You could see like the beginning words and it dissolved into a narration. And in chapter 2 it just dissolves into the show. And then the episode ends the same way. Like, it'll end on a shot, and then that shot will dissolve into the page of a book with that shot on it. I just think it's kind of cool. Just worth noting. The last thing, which I thought was really weird, there's a barrier around their realm. Did I write down the name of it? I'm forgetting the name of the fucking place. I don't think I wrote down the name of it. But wherever they're from, there's like a barrier around it that surrounds it, a magical barrier. And they're like, yeah, this is to help protect the Laura Dannon. And they're like, we got to get their mission to go find Eric it takes place outside of this. They got to go past the barrier. And they're going to leave. And the barrier has like a big doorless archway. And I'm like, it's going to be a really hard time keeping people out of this place if your barrier has a big doorless archway. I just thought that was really funny. Like, they made it sound like it's some impenetrable force. And I'm like, literally anybody can just walk through that. But that's all I got to say about this one. Like I said, I want to give you guys an idea of what this is. I think I did. It's kind of like, it's most similar to Lord of the Rings, but a little bit aged down. And then it does have a lot of issues with, I think, tone and I think intended audience. Like, it wants to hit everybody, but I feel like it's doing some things that are gonna alienate more people than I think they expect it to. So, I mean, know that coming in. I don't know if how this is gonna appeal to someone who's a huge fan of the movie, because like I said, I haven't seen the movie in 35 years. I don't remember it. So, but that's good though, because I don't want to judge a show. And this is a broad statement here, but this is how I approach my reviews on this channel in general. I don't want to review a show or a movie with how does this compare to the original IP, whether it's a book or a previous movie. I don't want to have that in the back of my head. I want to judge this for what it is and not how it compares to the other thing. So I'm kind of glad I don't remember it, so I can sit here and be like, the show's all right, but it's got a lot of problems. Whereas if I was a big fan of Willow, there might be all kinds of fan service shit in here, and I might have been fanning out like, oh man, I remember that thing, and I get in front of you guys, and I'm like, oh, there's all these cool things that made me remember Willow, which does not a good show make. So that's all I got for this one. I will see you guys tomorrow. Well, I can't say tomorrow because I don't know when you're gonna watch this, but I got Fleischman in Trouble episode 4 coming on Thursday, December 1st. And the season finale of The Peripheral, episode 8, coming on Friday. So till then, peace.